Hi, folks. Welcome to the February 16th, 2026 Gateway API meeting on the AU friendly time zone. Uh, this is, as always, this is a Kubernetes meeting whereby by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which loosely translates to be excellent to each other. We only got a couple of things on today, on the agenda today. So I think we should probably just get started. Maybe we can call this meeting a bit quicker. Um, First up, I put in Becca's note for everyone to sign up to the Dev Summit. EGADS, the Extra Gateway API Development Summit, is going to be running in Amsterdam this year, just before KubeCon. We'd really like to get as many people as we can fit in there, and a large part of this is about making sure that we can avoid having to have like many hours of Gateway API meetings during the week, which has happened the last few KubeCons, and which I don't know about anyone else, but has completely destroyed me every time. Um, that was the first one. The second two are basically the same one. Leo had an outstanding question for what's the current state of TCP route versus TLS route anyway, and Zach, you had a question about that as well. So I figured we should just talk about TCP route and TLS route. Zach, do you want to just take over for a second, explain? I read your issue already, but just want to explain for the recording what the story is.
Yeah, sure. So TLDR, the implementation I currently maintain does not really support TLS routes. Our data plane does not route via SNI, so we're kind of forced to use TCP routes. Um, Looking at the 1.5 release notes, it looks like that's going to go away or not recommended. So I'm kind of hoping to maybe reverse that decision or what. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah, you want to at least understand why we said it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I guess this comes back to like what the status of TCP route and TLS route is anyway. So the idea with TCP route has always been that TCP route is about taking all the traffic that arrives at a listener and sending it off to this one backend. It basically does the same thing as a load balancer service does today, in that you get like one or more on a load balancer service, you get one or more ports, and they all forward traffic to a set of backends. That's it. You can't pick, you can't multiplex, you can't do anything, right? And so that's what TCP route is designed to do. So, sort of up till now, we've been like, hey, yeah, you can do pass through, but like that's none of the gateway implementation's business, right? Like if you're doing TLS pass through on a TCP route, that is immaterial because you're using a TCP route, and all traffic that arrives at that port gets forwarded on as a TCP stream to the backend. So the one thing that does kind of get impacted here is we said, well, if you're doing because now TLS routes support termination, um, there's no real value to be added in having TCP route support TLS termination, because to do a TLS termination, you have to have a certificate that matches an SNI, regardless of whether or not so having TCP route where you don't set a host name is kind of a bit misleading, because the certificate has to have at least one host name defined, right? Like, and so the idea here is to say, hey, well, you and should at least be describing what the host names are that are on the certificate that's attached to your termination. And so if you're doing that, you really are matching on SNI, even if you're not matching on SNI, right? Like even if you're not actually discriminating based on SNI, you're still matching the SNI, because that's
Mhm.
otherwise you won't complete the TLS handshake. And so there's no what we were trying to say by removing that is there's no value to supporting terminated TLS on TCP route, because the whole point of TCP route is you're not supposed to look up that high in the stack, right? Like TCP route is supposed to be you're only looking at TCP things for the routing, so you're not supposed to know that TLS is there, right? Like you're supposed to just be like, if it's at the port, goes off to the back end. That's it, right? Like, and so that's why we did that. So I can understand, I can see how it would be scary to be like, hey, you've got to support all of the extra shenanigans, but if you support TLS route, so I guess um, that is a reasonable thing for you to call out, to say like, hey, we don't want to have to multiplex on SNI by supporting TLS route. We didn't think about that one. We were more sort of thinking like we wanted to be pushing people not to use TCP route for things where they don't need to. And now you have terminated TCP, terminated TLS available on TLS route, like TLS route is then for because you have to do an SNI match to finish a handshake. Terminated TLS route is actually a strict upgrade over TCP route from a sort of a user point of view. And so like I get that. Yeah, so I think maybe the best thing we can do is say, hey, like we don't recommend using this for now,
Mm.
and then so that you have some time to sort of get to adjust things. But I would strongly recommend that like if you've got people doing like effectively terminated TCP stream, like t terminated TLS TCP streams, then it would be better to do TLS route anyway, with terminate mode. And maybe what we need to do is add some sort of feature or something that's like only terminate supported, not pass through, but like go with SNI. But I mean, even then, like if you're doing TCP route, if you're doing a TCP stream with terminate TLS pass through, like it's yes, you do need to look at the SNI, but like the sort of the overhead of looking at the SNI and not looking at the SNI doesn't seem that big to me. Like, so I don't know. Like, I'd be interested to hear what you think. I don't want to start like break you now and be like you. I don't want us to break you now and be like you can't do that anymore. But equally, I don't feel like it's a good sustainable position for anybody to be in the longer term.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think like I had to double check our implementation before we talked here. I don't think it breaks anything for us because
Right.
we have this coding encoded into our controller. So
Right.
I think when we go to 1.5, it'll work.
Mhm.
It's just confusing when I talk to people who maybe want to use our implementation, like, hey, Gateway API says do it this way, but you do it that way. But I see where you're coming from. Um, I guess I do want to follow up on a comment you made. So like I think there's more value to like the TCP route than just like forwarding traffic off because like I've worked with customers actually who have like set up like blue-green deployments where like they gradually shift traffic over using two TCP routes behind a TLS listener.
But do we have? I don't think we have a weight on the TCP routes. How does that work?
Mm,
We've never defined that behavior. So like
mm,
if that like I as far as I'm concerned, as far as I remember, for TCP route it's only ever been valid to have a single TCP route connected to a listener. And that uses the standard conflict resolution things of oldest one wins. So if we are if we haven't specifically ruled that out, then that's a mistake, and we should. Because like that was always the intent is that you can only have one TCP route attached to a specific listener because there's nothing to pick which one you should send it to, right? Like, and we specifically did not put. I remember not putting. I thought we had not put multiple backends into TCP route for a similar reason because there's no uh like I don't remember. So yeah,
It
like
it it,
uh,
it supports. I'm checking
it
right
does.
now the API. It shouldn't,
Okay.
but yes, yes. I think one thing that I wanted to make it clear is that we are removing the recommendation from the APIs. We are not blocking. We are not
Yep.
adding any conformance saying that you shouldn't be using, TCP route. Specifically, let me give you an example. Like in the case that I'm touching more, which is Istio. Istio does have this behavior where you can attach TCP route to a TLS listener, and I didn't remove that while I was implementing the TLS route termination because I know that this may be a breaking change for users. Shouldn't be using experimental API, but they are, right? So I think that's valid just to call out that what we are doing is stop to say that you should be using TCP route attached to your TLS listener because we did on past. But that say all of these TCP route thing, including these like backend refs allowing maximum of 16 items that I can see right now, we'll need probably to to discuss during the promotion of TCP route for 1.6.
Yep. So it is definitely on my personal list to look at trying to promote TCP route further. And part of that will be nailing down and closing out any sort of ambiguity here about whether or not you can have more than one TLS route attached. Or, what happens if you have multiple backends? How does that work? One of the reasons we avoided all of this is that some of that is really hard to define, right? Like, if you're doing like weighted load balancing with multiple TCP backends, you need to also pick like what's your algorithms and what's your hashing algorithm, right? Most importantly, like what are you using for the hash? Is it a 5-tuple? Like, is there other stuff taken into account? Because if there is other stuff taken into account, that stuff should be defined in fields in TCP route, right? Like, and so so that you can say like match this, match that, match this, because then that makes TCP route even more actually useful for people. But one of the reasons, so TCP route is in a catch-22 situation at the moment, right? Like it is not stable because not enough people have implemented it, and not enough people have implemented it because it's not stable, right? Like so, we need to break that by trying to push it forward, getting some more people implementing it. Um, and and seeing what we can do. Now, you I think Cilium is in the lucky since I'm a maintainer for Cilium, like Cilium is in the lucky position here that we control the layer 4 data path for clusters that run Cilium as CNI anyway. So like it's possible for us to do a complete TCP route implementation that does not use a load balancer service, but it's a lot of work. And so that's why it's not done yet. So when I have been talking to people about TCP route and why you would want TCP route as opposed to just using a load balancer service, the biggest thing is that a gateway plus TCP route can do a thing that load balancer service alone cannot, which is that you can have different ports on a VIP be sent to different backends. You can't do that with a single load balancer service. That is not how load balancer services work. Yeah. So that is one of the biggest advantages of having a gateway is that you can have a single VIP share different protocols. TCP on one port, like port 22 TCP gets forwarded off to a SSH backend. Port 80 goes to, that has layer 7 load balancing via HTTP route. Port 443 has terminated TLS or pass through TLS or whatever, right? Like, but you can have different ports go to different places. That is what the spec is about. But practically, many implementations today use a load balancer service to handle this. And once you start adding like multiple layer 4 destinations, you can't use a single load balancer service anymore, which then means that you got to start being clever about your load balancer services because usually, unless you do hacks, which Cilium has, you can't have a single load balancer service have like multiple load balancer services share the same VIP. Cilium does allow you to do that if you do some stuff, but it's not like part of the load balancer service API. It's a Cilium sort of implementation specific thing. But again, like everybody who wants to be able to do proper TCP route support in combination with other protocols means that you cannot use a load balancer service to handle the underlying implementation, which is one of the reasons why this hasn't been pushed forward. So yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're running in AWS and your controller is configuring a AWS load balancer, you're in a very different story. It's the same for the Google folks, right? Like, so like I would really like it if we could get some, everybody to come together and be like, hey, we actually want to push TCP route forward. Here's the things that are unclear in the spec. Let's clarify them and let's get this thing moving and run some conformance tests and so on and so forth. But like, in order to do that, we need to have people who are, we have to have people implement the current spec because you don't find the holes in the current spec until you start implementing it, right? Like, and what you've said today is a great example of a hole in the spec that we just never thought about because no one had actually implemented it.
Okay. Yeah, I think my main concern was alleviated. Like, I understand like I'm deviating from what you guys recommend, but at the same time, I don't have the power. It's way above my pay grade to go say, hey, AWS NLB, go implement this. So I'm gonna take the L here and be like, I have to go against the grain here. But yeah, I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah, cool. So I think what we would like to do is to make it so like to give you a way forward that's like, hey, it's better for you to do terminated TLS route because of these reasons, so that then you can take that to product managers or whatever and be like, hey, Gateway API says it's better to do this, in order to continue to be a conformant, at some point in the future, in order to be a conformant implementation, we will need to do this, right? Like, so that's one of the reasons we have conformance is so that implementation owners can go to people who sign paychecks and say, well, if you want to be able to say we have a conformant gateway API implementation, you got to do these things because that's what the spec says, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, the the conformance is good for everybody in that respect, right? Like it's useful for users because they know that everything is going to be the same, and it's useful for implementers because we can say, hey, sorry, like we have this is not a negotiable feature. This is a like have to do if we want to be conformant um thing. And that's part of the reason why we're very picky about conformance is that once it goes into conformance, like it's very important, and people will have to do work.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for asking the question because it's been on my mind for a while. Ricardo and I have been sort of been talking, maintainer chats about TCP route. One of our goals for 1.6 is to finally clear the standard API group, which is the gateway.networking.kubernetes.k8s.io API group. We want that to have only stable resources, right? So currently. As of 1.5, the only non-stable resources that we will have are TCP route and UDP route. And so we want to move those forward. We want to get those graduated. We want to decide what we're doing with them. Like, are we moving them forward? I think we are, but that is a thing that we need to be in agreement on. Again, I think that the use case of being able to share a VIP is enough a reason for TCP route to be a distinct thing to load balancer services. Um, and UDP route as well. I do think that it's going to be very difficult for implementations to implement them correctly, though. Because you need a lot of access to the low layer stuff. And in some implementations that do them today do it with a sort of a transparent proxy, which you has the effect of like your both natting and your source natting the layer 4 traffic, which sometimes doesn't matter and sometimes it does. And so, like, I think that if we're going to have TCP route, we need to be very careful to make sure that there's a difference between an implementation that does not source net the layer 4 traffic and one that does. Then
Okay.
maybe it's probably going to need a feature or something like that to be like, hey, how does the traffic flow work so that people who don't care about source netting can choose an implementation that does or doesn't. It doesn't matter to them. For if you do care about not having source netting, then there is a way for you to know that a gateway implementation will or will not do that. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess on that topic of like conformance and stuff, is there something last time I was in this meeting, there was not enough implementations with TCP UDP um implementations, I guess. How can I help here? Because we have a
If
full
you,
implementation of TCP
yep.
UDP at the moment.
Okay, great. So, what I would say is the first conformance test that we need for TCP route and UDP route is like a normative one, right? Happy path test, right? Like, everything is working fine. You have like something very simple. You have a single TCP route on a single port with a single backend, and the traffic flows, right? Like,
I,
and you get a response from a TCP service, right? Like, that's the that's the sort of the once we have those for TCP route and UDP route, then that's the sort of the that's like the very very base like MVP for the conformance, and then we can start being like, okay, so what happens when we have weighted load balancing? Oh, we don't really have any rules about that. So we need to write the rules and then we can write the conformance test to match the rules, right?
I think one thing that probably we want to do is the same path that we took with TLS route, which would be writing a gap, even being
Yeah.
interactive,
Yeah.
explaining the APIs. Like if you're deciding to drop the minimum and maximum backends or restricting them, I think it would be good so we can at least track our decisions.
Mhm.
Like as we did with the LS route, at least so we can, let people know how we got into that API and why we changed some things. If we decide to change something during this path and implementations are already working, why we did that change, right? So
Yeah.
I can help you with that, Zach, if you want to start writing as well, or I'm not sure, Nick, if you are willing to do that. We can
Yeah.
start a draft on
Yeah.
some
So,
Google Docs,
look,
whatever.
I mean, it is totally within my ability to smash out like the initial start of a TCP route gap. But to be honest, I'd love to see other people write some gaps.
Me
So,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So Zach,
Zach is gonna be, yeah.
yeah, so if you're okay with it, like I would love to like I'm happy to work with you and like help you through the process of writing a gap and sort of read drafts of the gap and stuff like that and do some quicker iteration than on a PR. maybe one of the things that's worked before is to use like HackMD or some other markdown like online editing tool, and and be able to just have a draft and then be like, oh, you need to add this, you need to add this, or you need to explain this here, that sort of stuff, so that we can go a bit quicker than a PR and get sort of a rough approximation before we then open a proper PR and then start hashing out details. It is also okay to merge because so we're sort of this is one of those weird ones where we're effectively going to merge a provisional gap, even though we've got experimental APIs for this first. We're going to we can iterate on a provisional gap without like having to make any changes to the existing APIs. And so then once we push it to experimental, it either needs to match the existing APIs or we need to change the APIs to match whatever's in the experimental gap, right? So like, but so we can iterate on a gap sort of laying out, here's why you would use it, here's what we're doing, here's the things that matter. We can leave open questions in a provisional gap and say, what do we do about source natting? Don't know, that's an open question. That's fine. Like it's okay as long as we've documented, hey, there is an open question. That means that when people are like, but what about source nat? You can see how there's an open question. We're going to deal with that in a bit. We're going to get this other stuff sorted first. And so making sure we record open questions is really important. Yeah, those are the main sort of things that I would say. See, if you're okay to do that, like, I need you to be aware, like pushing a gap through is a reasonable amount of work. But
Mhm.
given that you already control an implementation that does it, you are probably in one of the best positions to be the one who pushes through the gap. Um, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem to do that. I'll start looking up the get process.
Yeah, I've sent you one that I used it on Slack for TLS route, which was actually like we started from not only the provisional. You can start from the provisional if you want. That one was like, hey, this is like all of the information that I've gathered from previous decisions from TLS route, and I have started to assemble that document, and then we started to discuss over that one. So whatever works better for you and your time. If you just want to do the provisional first, or if you want to start already jumping into the experimental, but
Yeah, in
letting
this
us know
case,
that we want to promote that for GA.
yeah,
Yeah,
in this case, it's 100% fine to straight away go to an experimental get because the APIs are an experimental. Also,
yeah.
I would say have a think about whether or not you want to do TCP route and UDP route as separate or the same in the same gap. I am kind of inclined to say the same gap is better because many concerns for TCP route will apply to UDP route. Not all of them. Like there's a bunch of session table stuff that you got to think about for TCP route forwarding and that you don't. Uh, and then for UDP route, if you're doing this sort of forwarding thing, you have to think about pseudo sessions and timeouts for pseudo sessions and stuff like that. That that's what we when I was running managed firewalls for big providers, that was things we had to care about. And so like so I think some of those things are probably things that are worth having in the gap as stuff that we think about, and as Ricardo says in the chat, have maybe we give them separate feature names, maybe the fields have things or something, right? Like, but there's a bunch of sort of lower level stuff that you'll need to run this that it is worth at least documenting that we've talked about it. Maybe we don't add it yet, maybe we add it later. It's okay to add sort of a minimal feature set and say like, no, you can't control UDP pseudo session timeouts at the moment. That's that's a change for later. It's up to the implementation how they manage that for now. Like boom, but like then we can come back and handle that later. Again, and same as SNATing, right? Like it's okay to say like we don't care at the moment. SNATing is not a concern. That means that your traffic may or may not be SNATed. That's
Mm.
if you care about that, tell us so that then we can build a feature that describes SNAT, no SNAT only or something like that, right? Like,
Makes
yeah,
sense. Cool. Yeah, I think I have enough to start.
yeah,
Thanks for
awesome.
explaining it to me.
Yeah, no problems, man. Happy to. Yeah, please feel free to I so this is just the start of my day because I'm in Australia. Please feel free to reach out to me. Like put stuff in my Slack if you have any questions or anything like that out of band or out of hours. If it's your morning and you got a question for me, put it in the thing and I'll check it when I wake up.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. That's really exciting. We've been hoping to get some movement on TCP route and UDP route for a while. So yeah, it's really I was not aware that your implementation already did them. So that's fantastic. I would put a call out. I'll add this to the notes as well to say, hey, any other implementations that do TCP route or UDP route, we're going to be opening with, Zach is going to be doing this gap. So like, pay attention, please. And so that you can be involved in the discussion here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
As a request that I have, just if you don't mind, it's just like if you feel at any moment that you are going to be struggle with something on your day work, or like you're not going to be able to do that, just let us know. Like it's fine. So at least we don't block you and you don't block us, so we can see if someone else wanted to continue in your work as we did with other features during this during 1.5. It's totally fine. Just let us know. Like we know that sometimes we promise something here, and whoever pays the check asks us to do something different. So just let us know.
Yeah, it's not something like I'll be able to knock out, tomorrow, but
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
give me
totally.
give me some time.
100%.
I
Oh
can do
yeah,
it.
yeah. No worries. We have time. Yeah.
We've both written gaps, man. We know how it goes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually just looking. I don't think I cannot find. I'm just checking to see if we have any existing gaps for TCP route and UDP route. I will spend a bit of time, and if there are, I'll send them to you, Zach, so just so that we don't need to, because another part of the gap process is having an actual issue, so the gap gets a number. So I will just go and have a look now. Oh no, there are, but they're closed, so that's fine. I will reopen them and then ping them to you. Great. 2645 for UDP route and 2644 for TCP route. Yep, awesome. I will yeah, I'll ping those to you now, Zach. Hang on, let me find you on. Are you just Zach Nixon on CubeSock? Are you on Kubernetes Slack, Zach?
Yeah, I am. I can ping you.
Great, excellent, thank you. I haven't got it yet, but that's fine. Yeah, ping me so that I've got your Slack handle, and then I'll send you the details.
Cool. Sounds great. That's
Excellent.
all I had. Thanks.
Yep. No, thank you. I think that's all we have for today, unless anyone else has anything they would like to talk about. Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's call this meeting early. And thanks for your time, Zach. Thanks for your time, everybody. And let's move TCP route and UDP route forward. Awesome. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See you, folks. Bye.